There were 215 bodies that were buried in unmarked graves behind a jail in Jackson, Mississippi. But for some reason, the families of these 215 deceased did not know that they were there. And it's not like they weren't looking for them. They spent months, sometimes years, looking for their missing family members, only to find out months or years later that they were just disposed of in Pauper's Field. So there are a lot of families that are angry. They reported their family members missing to the police and they got no response. They got no help from the police department. Yet the police department somehow handled the disposal. The bodies were not embalmed. The bodies were not given coffins. So if you can imagine, the bodies were just kind of thrown into the ground, into a hole in the ground, dug by inmates. No words were said. Their family members weren't able to say goodbye. They were just disposed of in this hole on Pauper's Field. I may be a little bit ashamed to say that I did find this out from TikTok. However, this is not my fault that I found this from TikTok because, well, maybe it is my fault. Yes, I do go to TikTok a lot and I spend a lot of hours. I probably spend more hours on social media than I do listening or reading the news. But that's okay because guess what? This actually wasn't in the mainstream news. Most people found out about this from TikTok, from viral videos that were going on, but it was pointed out that the news actually didn't cover this that much. Shocking. Just because you're not watching it on TV in the morning when you're enjoying your cup of joe does not mean that it's not happening. We have to find things out from TikTok. We as in like regular people, me and you, yeah, you watching, I'm sorry to say you're a regular person, you're just like me. No, you're not. Well, wait. Me and you, we're not politicians. Actually, what if like Obama's watching this? Hey, Obama. Things that are absurd and appalling that are going on in America, even if we won't find out from the mainstream news, we will find out because of the power of social media. And I know social media sucks. You know, you think of your aunt that's like getting her news from Facebook and she's like, do vaccines cause autism? And you're like, no, Aunt Beth, that's not what it is. You're just reading Facebook and you're reading a little bit too much into it. So anyway, with all of this, I mean to say that social media has the power to distribute news that is noteworthy and important, but for some reason isn't communicated through the normal news outlets. Whether it be because there's corruption in the government, or there's corruption. One of those three options. But before we get into it, I just wanted to quickly ask you guys to please consider subscribing to this channel because I post videos every single week here on true crime, paranormal, spooky things that you definitely want to hear. I also post daily shorts, so make sure to subscribe. Also, if you're a subscriber and you're not a member, what are you doing? It's only $2.99. It's $2.99 to make my dream come true. And if my dream comes true, I will always remember you. The first 15 people that are members of my channel, I will always remember you. Just note that. And that's not a bribe. Is it? See, okay. Now let's just move on because I don't know where I'm going with this. But this whole thing basically came to light because of a woman named Dexter Wade. Now, Dexter Wade is the mother of someone named Dexter Wade, who was 37 years old the time he went missing. One day, Dexter left her house and he never returned. His mother became worried, like a mother would do if her son or child didn't come home. She still hasn't heard from her son, Dexter. And if you're thinking, well, why didn't she call the first night that he was gone? Why didn't she call the second night he was gone? Well, unfortunately, Mrs. Wade had an issue with the police in the past. And by issue, I mean the police were the issue. She was not the issue. She was hesitant to even call the police because of her lack of trust in the police because her 62-year-old brother actually died in the hands of the Jackson police in 2019 when an officer slammed her brother to the ground. Since then, the officer was convicted of manslaughter, but is appealing. So you can see why she was a little bit hesitant to call the police, but she did, because what are you going to do when your son is literally missing? You're going to have to do something, and that's going to be calling the police, even though they killed your brother. So she ended up filing a missing persons report just a few days after he went missing in March. But she points out that she found little to no help from the police department. She kept calling the Jackson Police Department asking if they had any new information on her son, if there was any updates, if anyone called in and reported seeing him, but she basically got nowhere. She even emailed pictures of her son to the police and requested them to show his photo on the news, show his photo on something to kind of get the word out that he's missing. When she ultimately didn't get help from the Jackson Police Department, she went to social media to kind of ask the public to be on the lookout for him, just to report it because her son is missing. This poor woman spent 7 whole months looking for her child. In August, 5 months after she filed the missing report of her son, a new investigator took on Dexter's case. Thank the Lord that someone else took it on, because I don't know what the other person was doing. If this new guy found out what happened to him, you know, it's like, where's the disconnect here? It's almost as if the person before him actually wasn't looking, or maybe even knew something about it but wouldn't tell her. So after this new investigator took over the case, Betterston was finally notified of her son's death. She found out that he was actually killed just shortly after he left his mother's home, and he was specifically hit by a Jackson police car while he was crossing a nearby interstate highway. But even though she found out this information about her son 5 months after she reported him missing, it took an additional 2 months to actually locate his body in Pauper's Field. And she couldn't just, pick up his body to do a proper burial. She actually had to pay them money. She had to pay a $250 fee to exhume the body of her son that was wrongfully buried without her being notified, despite the fact that she reported him missing 5 months before. But in October, Betterston went to Pauper's Field with the sheriff's deputy and 2 inmates. They went to plot number 672, where Dexter was buried. But what really upsets me is that the police knew his identity when they found him dead 5 months before she found out that he died. He was actually killed with identification on him. But even though he had identification on him, the police let him sit in a morgue for months, remaining unclaimed despite his mother filing a missing reports case only a few days after he went missing. A wallet was found in his front pocket along with his ID. His home address was there, his insurance card was there. You think that the police department who actually hit him would find the identification on him and actually try to find his family members. When Benjamin Crump, who is an attorney for the Wade family and other families of, the 215 bodies that were wrongfully buried without, their families knowing, when he was asked what's the explanation officials give for why no one was notified, the civil rights attorney stated there really is no explanation that they have offered. So they have nothing to say. They can't even they've covered themselves up once for no reason. Like, things would have been better if they just came clean in the beginning, Someone hit him. The police department hit him. I'm so sorry. No, they had to cover it up, which made things worse. And on top of covering it up, they're triple covering it up for some reason. But the police department claimed that they actually called his mother's house. But the attorney points out that if they really wanted to get in contact with her, they would, because she's in a lawsuit with the police department. So it is very suspicious that they would just bury him on Pauper's Field in a grave, because they said that they could not identify his next of kin. The attorney also points out that we are seeking to have the Federal Department of Justice come in and do an investigation to make sure that each and every one of these citizens, disproportionately Black citizens whose lives matter, will be identified, their families notified, and them given a proper funeral. But because of Dexter Wade's mother, Betterston Wade, because of her persistence in finding out what happened to her son, why he was missing for so long, where his body is, because of her persistence, over 200 other families are potentially able to get a little bit more closure on how their beloved ones passed away, where they were buried, and why. So Betterston Wade eventually did find out what happened to him. She was able to retrieve his body and able to put him to rest properly. Marrio Moore was notified of her brother's death, Marrio Terrell, and unfortunately, she also didn't find out about her brother's death from a police phone call. Instead, she found out by reading an article online. Imagine that. Imagine you find out that your beloved one passed away after he's been missing for months, maybe even years, from an article online. Now, this article revealed the cases of 24 homicide victims in which the Jackson police had failed to notify the public or the families. She read the news in October, which was 8 months after her brother was killed. NBC News reported that upon finding about her brother, Moore shuddered and cried out, "Lord, this is my brother. Someone killed my brother." After she found out, Moore went to the Jackson Police Department. She wanted to find out more information that was available about her brother and how he passed away, but she was told that no one was available. Like, this is not a European wax center, okay? It's not like, "Oh, hi, I came in for a bikini wax. Sorry, no one's available." This is a police department who wrongfully did not notify the family of the deceased about his death nor his burial. And then on top of that, the police are gonna say, "Sorry, no one's available." Like, get your boss on the phone. What are you doing? And just to put a cherry on top, that's sarcasm, obviously, Moore found out her brother was bludgeoned to death, wrapped in a tarp, and left on the street. So he had this horrible ending to his life. And on top of it, his sister didn't even know how he passed, where he passed, that he passed, he was just missing, where he was buried, anything like that for months. Additionally, his body was also at the Hinds County morgue, unclaimed for 5 months total. Then in July, the inmates at the county penal farm buried his remains in Pauper's Field. In an interview, she stated, "What are you hiding? Why can't you just come and just tell somebody that their child is gone?" Marrio was buried the same day and in the same place as Dexter Wade. Unfortunately, the Moore family and the Wade family aren't the only ones that had this horrible thing happen to them on top of a horrible thing happening to them. But Jonathan David Hankins, his family found out about his death from news outlets, but they didn't find out until December. He was initially reported missing in June of 2022, nearly a year before the first 2 cases. So this shows that the practice of them burying people without notifying their families, without even trying to find their families, has been happening not just in 2023, but in 2022. So it brings up the question, how many years has this been going on for? His family found out that he was discovered dead just days after he was reported missing. And he was found dead in a hotel room in May of 2022. His death is believed to be an overdose, and investigators were able to verify his identity with no delay. But even though they identified him, the Jackson Police Department still didn't let his family know. And for over a year, his mother contacted the Jackson Police Department every few weeks asking for any news, any updates on her son's whereabouts, on what happened to him, but similarly to the other cases, she found out nothing. Speaking with NBC News, his mother Gretchen said, "I want people to know that somebody is not doing their job and making folks go through what I've been through. They can't even do the job of notifying dead person's next of kin. They probably just thought, another drug addict gone." So those are just 3 of the people of the 215 people that are buried, with most of their families not knowing where they are, why they're there, if they died, if they're still missing or not. And a lot of people note that critical details are still being withheld from the public. In common among all of the victims, all 215 buried in Pauper's Field, they all seem to be in working class and poor. This county is predominantly black, but there are white people buried there as well. News networks have actually published the names and information on all 215 of the deceased buried, so their family can hopefully find out what happened to them ultimately. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about this. Thanks again for watching this video. Also make sure to subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you guys next time here on Cauldron Convos. Bye!